Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Black power.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now
We have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Hey, folks, today is Friday, November 11, 2022. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Georgia, the battleground is all about Georgia. Grassroots groups, they are gearing up for what is going to be a vicious fight to, of course, be pitting between Warnock as well as Herschel Walker. And we'll break down what they are doing on the ground to turn black voters out. Also, on today's show, what happened in Milwaukee? Mandela Barnes, Lieutenant Governor, lost by 27,000 votes to Senator Ron Johnson. Did he lose because his campaign didn't go hard on black voters in Milwaukee? We'll talk to an activist who has the numbers to show how Milwaukee numbers were down more than 50,000. That was the difference right there. Also, Florida is an absolute mess. Democrats are in complete turmoil. They got blown out there. Now Donald Trump is saying that he sicked the feds in 2018 to stop the count. Really? Yeah, we're going to break that thing down, too. Lots we're going to be covering on today's show, folks. And also, we'll talk with the pastor who is marching from Baltimore to the White House in support of reparations. He also led the historic black church in Tulsa's Greenwood community. You're watching. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Folks, Reverend Robert Turner was the pastor at a historic church in Tulsa there in Greenwood. We, of course, were there last year, of course, when we were in town for the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa race riots. In fact, yesterday was the 108th birthday of one of those three survivors. The folks there in Tulsa, they have been fighting to get reparations for what happened. There are survivors, there are descendants when Greenwood was completely destroyed, but the state of Oklahoma has refused to do so. The city of Tulsa has refused to do so. Reverend Robert Turner is now the pastor at Empowerment Temple in Baltimore, and he began this morning, he's actually on a walk from Baltimore to the nation, to the White House, regarding this issue of reparations. He joins us right now as he is walking. Pastor, how far are you away from the White House?
I'm 3 miles from the White House right now.
So you started what time this morning?
I started at 3:20, met at the church, and started marching at 4 a.m. We prayed, had devotional, and we started marching from 4, and now we are 3 miles away.
Now, how often are you doing this? Because this is not the first time you've already done it.
No, we did it last month. We're doing it this month. We're doing it every month until repair is done.
All right. And when you say repair is done, what does that mean?
That means that first and foremost, we need to have a serious conversation and we need to pass H.R. 40 that's passed right now the House. And if that does not pass, we need to have some serious conversations with the president on signing an executive order to bring that about.
Now, as I said, you were the pastor of the church in Tulsa, and you've got folks there who, frankly, who've done nothing on this very issue.
It's terrible, and you're absolutely right. Tulsa the site of the worst race massacre in American history. And as you know, every Wednesday in Tulsa, I went out to City Hall protesting the lack of repair for 3 years, and also advocating the excavation of the mass graves, which is currently underway. And so it's a sad stain on the history of Tulsa and the history of America that we have so many patriots, because African Americans who have been patriots. We're celebrating Veterans Day today. The first person to die for this country was a black man. We've been patriots, we've been scientists, we've been doctors, we've been lawyers, and we've never been given repair. Meanwhile, we are canceling people now because they haven't apologized, but black folks haven't gotten an apology in over 400 years.
You remember the National African American Reparations Commission. You also have in Cobra, you got other groups out there. And one of the things, you mentioned HR 40, and you've got some people, and I deal with them all the time on social media, they say that's a joke, that's a waste of time. And I'm going, well, okay, there's a start. And if you think that's a joke, it has 217 co-sponsors. I say, well, what in the hell is your idea?
Exactly. My same response. I for one, and I respect those individuals. I actually include those that they're talking about just the sentence of slaves, but it has to be more than just that, because white supremacy has impacted more than just the sentence of slaves. If you've been black in this country for 2 minutes, you felt the impact of racism. Now, when we talk about the calculation of how much folks should get, it should possibly be commensurate to the length of time your family has been in this country. But to just write people off because they weren't here, because their ancestors weren't here doing slavery, I think it's divisive.
And so you're making the march to the White House. Have you received any feedback? Have you talked to anybody in the White House? And when you get to the White House, what are you going to do?
What I'm going to do, thank you for asking, we have a wreath of 400 carnations that symbolizes the 400 years of oppression that our people have suffered in this country. And that wreath will be laid at the gate of the White House, at the fence of the White House. We will pray, we will read scripture, and we will depart. Roland, as you know, is a man of faith. This is a spiritual movement for us. Before the Israelites got the land of Jericho, they walked around the wall 7 times. And we, during this march, I'm praying in deep conversation with God, because as we seek reparations from America, I also think we need to mentally repair ourselves and our minds from the shackles of white supremacy and colonialism.
But you obviously want to get the attention of the White House. How do you do so?
Yes, absolutely. So the hope is just that we have a grassroots movement now that's actually starting to reach out. Today, I listed 4 things people to do, and one of those things was to contact their elected official and to let them know that they support reparations. And as we start this drumbeat to going, we definitely believe that it will reach the ears of the president. There have been conversations I've had with others as we form strategy that publicly I'm not at liberty to share, but just know that there's a lot going on behind the scenes. But this is a part of an even larger strategy.
All right, then. Pastor Robert Turner, we surely appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, brother. Keep up the great work.
All right, will do. Appreciate it. My panel, folks, is Michael Imhotep, host of the African History Network show, Matt Manning, civil rights attorney, Danae Joseph, immigrant rights activist. Glad you are all 3 with us. Michael, I'll start with you. Again, what you heard me ask there, in terms of, how do you get their attention? And it is quite interesting when I look at these folks, and again, they're always commenting, on social media, always on my page, and they're hollering and screaming that HR 40 is a joke, it's too weak, it's irrelevant. But I keep also asking, well, how do you think, if you're saying that's weak, and then if you're saying,
Right.
if you're trashing Democrats, and then some people are saying no vote until we get a check, then I'm going, yeah, but you need the politicians to vote on the check, which means you kind of got to vote. I mean, it's like all of these things all over the place, and they literally don't make sense. You have to. I don't care what you want to get. There has to be an actual political strategy to get there if you're trying to get it through the political system.
Well, Roland, it's good to see you again, man, and it's good to have seen you in person on Tuesday as well for the marathon broadcast. I respect what the pastor is doing. I respect those involved in the reparations movement. some of my teachers are involved with in Cobra. But first and foremost, brother, we need to learn how to make legal arguments. And unfortunately, this may go outside the circumference of some people's awareness. Unfortunately, a lot of these arguments for reparations are not legal arguments, okay? And what I mean by that is if you study the Black Freedmen Indian Treaties of 1866, and Demario Solomon Simmons is working with Representative Maxine Waters to get that enforced. Those Africans that were enslaved by the Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, Cherokee, and Seminole Indians, they actually got some reparations. They got some land. They got membership in Native American nations. These are treaties that are still being enforced right now for those what are known as the 5 civilized tribes of Native Americans. But many of those Africans were pushed out of those treaties and their land was taken away. I would encourage the brother to research, 1, the Black Freedmen Indian Treaties of 1866, 2, Article 1, Section 9, Clause 1 of the U.S. Constitution. And the reason why I say that is because that helps you to lay a legal foundation for repairing the damage of a legacy of slavery. And what I mean by that is because March 2nd, 1807, the U.S. Congress abolished the international transatlantic slave trade. The international transatlantic slave trade means bringing Africans into the country to enslave them. It went into effect January 1st, 1808. The reason why it went into effect in 1808 is because if you read Article 1, Section 9, Clause 1, and you can go to archives.gov, the U.S. Archives, U.S. National Archives, or LOC.gov, Library of Congress, and read it. It tells you that the earliest that the international transatlantic slave trade can be abolished is 1808. Now, all the Africans that were brought in from January 1st, 1808 through July 1860, when the Clotilda came into Alabama, all that's illegal based upon federal law. And in the court cases, to back up your legal argument, one of the strongest court cases is a U.S. Supreme Court case of 1841, the United States versus the Amistad slave. Those Africans were given their freedom because the U.S. Supreme Court ruled, number 1, it was illegal for that ship to come into U.S. waters because the international transatlantic slave trade had been abolished. 2, based upon international treaties, it was illegal for them to be captured in Sierra Leone. 3, they were given their freedom because the U.S. Supreme Court ruled they were never slaves, and it ruled that they had the right to take up arms on that ship. Now, that helps to lay a legal foundation. This is federal law, and you can see court cases to back up your legal argument. I love my brothers involved in the reparations movement, but saying that we were enslaved for 246 years, therefore our ancestors deserve a check, therefore we deserve a check or something like that. I agree with repairing the damage, but what law are you citing? Listen to me, please, everybody. What law are you citing that slaves were supposed to be paid? You're not making a legal argument.
Well, first of all, you got to have but Matt, you got to have a legal argument and a political argument and a political strategy.
I agree.
Yeah,
Matt?
I agree. Yeah, I think Michael's right. I think the difficulty, though, is a lot of those legal arguments are predicated on a basic moral foundation. And I mean that to say, look at the reparations for Japanese Americans who were interned, right? Then the intern camps in the 40s. There was an actual reparation scheme. And I think what Michael's essentially getting to and what everyone is getting to is the reality is the government does not want to figure out how to give us reparations. So the legal arguments are important. But I've thought about this a million times, and to me, it seems like a basic equal protection argument. The idea that you can have multiple groups of people in this country who have been aggrieved, some of whom the government has thought it was appropriate to figure out a reparation scheme for, and the others it has not, creates a basic problem of disparate treatment among people. So the legal arguments are important, but they have to be founded on a basic moral responsibility to do the right thing. And we see that our government does not feel that basic moral responsibility to do that, which is why every time the reparations conversation comes up, we get mired in conversations of how Black do you have to be? How long do you have to have been here? Does it apply to Pan-African diasporic peoples or only African Americans who were born here in generations of slaves, from enslaved people, rather than thinking of the entire country was built on 400 years of not only slavery, but unpaid labor. How do we right this wrong? And until we as a country, address that morally, the legal arguments won't matter, because the legal arguments to me are pretty easy to make. And they can be conceptualized a lot of different ways that they've been conceptualized. It comes down to them not wanting to give us reparations. It's that simple. And no matter how, interesting and how novel and brilliant the legal argument, none of it will ever have any effect unless and until there's that moral responsibility that we have not found yet.
And Danae, again, what I keep saying to these people, and they get so upset at me, and I keep laying out, if you do not have a political strategy, if you don't understand how to move things down the halls of Congress, you ain't getting jack. You can yell, holler, and scream, cut the check, tangibles all day, but you cannot demand something of a political structure and you have an absence of a political strategy.
I absolutely agree. And the reason that I agree is it was already a struggle for us to get $1,200 stimulus checks. So can you imagine people hearing about millions and billions of dollars to give to the descendants of enslaved African people? They do not want to hear that, right? So I think there is a way that we could ask for reparations. And that way that we ask for reparations is making very specific, tangible requests as far as access to resources, right? Making sure that people have access to home ownership, making sure that the descendants of enslaved African people have access to institutions of higher learning, right? Just being able to bridge the gaps and the divides that exist in the United States of America, because folks aren't going to want to give us the millions and billions of dollars in which we deserve as a result of the enslavement of our people, right? But you're absolutely right. Political strategy is everything. If it was so much of a fight for us to be able to get stimulus dollars for a pandemic that we're currently under, you can only imagine the tooth and nail fighting that we're going to have to do just to be able to get reparations. Now, in my mind, there's no doubt that we deserve reparations. And there's no doubt, seeing as though the people who enslaved us were able to get reparations before we were, right? They were able to get reparations for their loss of property. That is a fact. So if they were able to get reparations for their quote unquote loss of property, being us, our bodies, then why shouldn't we, as the individuals who had to deal with the enslavement and then, of course, subsequently the generations to come and the traumatization that is played within our communities, and not just the trauma that it's played in our communities, but the long-term impact. As a result of our enslavement, we weren't given the access to opportunities. We weren't given the same equity that other individuals got. There's people who literally built wealth in this country off of the backs of enslaved people, and they were given opportunity simply because of that. So why shouldn't we now get reparations? But you're absolutely right. There's a way to do that. There's a strategy that needs to be played. But then I also agree that some folks are just fed up, and so they're trying to withhold as much as possible until we could get tangible, actionable wins, right? Because it's not enough to continue to give our votes and get nothing in return, or to not feel as though our voices are being heard and listened to. So what does Dr. King say? Writing is the voice of the oppressed. So you're going to continue to see people show up and show out until it is that we get what we want, which is tangible wins and not just promises.
Well, again, as I say to folks, you better have a strategy, and you have to execute that strategy. So Pastor's going to be doing that march every single month, and then we'll see what that happens in other events as well. Got to go to a break. We come back. Speaking of strategy, what the hell strategy did Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes have in Milwaukee? Massive drop in number of votes there. Did his campaign have a real black voter strategy? It lost by 27,000 votes. More than 50,000 folks in Milwaukee didn't vote this year compared to 4 years ago. We'll break it down next with an activist who's on the ground there. We'll also talk in this hour with 3 grassroots organizations who are focused on getting out black votes in Georgia for this runoff between Senator Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker. Folks, you're watching Black Star Network. Be sure to download the Black Star Network app on all platforms: Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Also, supporting what we do. Your dollars make it possible for us to do what we do here. And so support us by sending your checks and money orders to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear: How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Available at all bookstores. Download on Audible. Order through your favorite black bookstore. We'll be right back.
We've got to stand up. Republicans are banning abortion rights, tearing down democracy, blocking progress. But when Democrats stand together, we win. Because we voted, Democrats stood up for black lives, voting to ban police chokeholds, stood up for black women, putting one on the Supreme Court, stood up for our families, lowering cost of health care and prescriptions and capping insulin, and stood up for millions by slashing student debt. This November, let's stand up together and keep making progress.
On the next A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, 2 facts that you need to be aware of. African American women have the highest diagnosis of breast cancer than any other group in the U.S. And young African American women are most likely to be diagnosed with one of the highest aggressive forms of breast cancer than all other groups. It is a disease that requires fast action, determination, and a whole lot of support. On our next show, we'll meet a young woman who's chosen an alternative path and approach to tackling this disease. And you'll hear from our medical and support experts on how to maintain balance through it all.
We encourage exercise. We encourage, changing diet and making, all those personal changes.
That's on the next A Balanced Life on Black Star Network.
Hey, I'm Amber Stevens-West.
I'm Avery Sunshine.
So this is Roger Bow. I got a message for Roland Ascott Martin. Buddy, you're supposed to be hooking me up with some of these mascots. I'm sorry, ascots that you claim to wear. Where's mine, buddy? Where's mine? That's all I got to say to you, okay? Mascot, goodbye.
Hi, this is Essence Atkins, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, we've been looking at all of these different elections, how did votes break down, and one of the places where I immediately jumped out when we saw what happened with Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes in his race for the United States Senate against Senator Ron Johnson. The first thing I said was, how did Milwaukee do? Well, John D. Johnson, a research fellow at the Marquette Law School Lubar Center, reported that one of Wisconsin's most prominent Democratic strangleholds, there was a big drop from 2018 to this year. Pull the graphic up, please. Folks, $144 million was spent on advertising in Wisconsin's general election. But what happened here? Now, this is what it says. Go back to the previous graph. Okay? So here's what we see. Above average statewide turnout for a midterm, okay? I say 58%. Second highest in 2018. All right? So above average. Got it. Young voters, big increase, a 350% increase. Nearly 80,000 new voters between the ages of 18 and 34. And you see the other numbers. That's from Wisconsin PBS. But you go to Milwaukee County, and the turnout was down 11%. Let's go to the city of Milwaukee. Turnout was down 11% there. You see the graphic here. In 2018, 216,545 people voted in the city of Milwaukee. Again, 216,545. This year, 176,726. That's a difference of 39,819 votes, okay? That's a significant number. Now, let's talk about here the different wards there in Milwaukee that is called the Black Whitefish Bay Black Political Power Corridor, okay? All right, you'll see right here, Ward 55, all right? Let's pull that graphic up, folks. Ward 55, you see a 19% drop. Ward 56, a 12% drop. Ward 57, a 16% drop. Okay, quite interesting. Joining us right now, is someone who knows these numbers well. He was on the ground there. Dr. Robert Vico Baker, a visiting assistant professor at the University of Wisconsin. Vico, glad to have you on the show. I was talking with Alicia Garza. She was telling me the work that they were doing on the ground, the Black Census Project and others. And so, real easy. What the hell happened? I mean, you would think a black lieutenant governor is running for United States Senate, significant black population in Milwaukee, and that huge drop-off. You were there. What happened?
Well, first of all, I appreciate you having me on, Brother Martin. It's a privilege and an honor, and my social media was going wild today, thanks to you, so thank you very much. You know, I love Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes. I may have been the first person ever to max out to him when he was a state rep. But in September, many of us throughout the city started being the miner's canary when we highlighted that he did not have a black strategy. And most specifically in Milwaukee, he did not have a black woman strategy. And in a place where you have so much density with black voters, it was sort of eye-opening, to be honest.
Whoa,
and you see the numbers.
Hold on, let's stop. You just said, hold it. You said Barnes did not have a black voter strategy and not a black female voter strategy?
Well, I have a lot of stories, so we can go into the numbers or anecdotals. And you know, black folks, we don't never like to do inside baseball or air dirty laundry. But for the public record, he ducked and sort of dived, at least according to my friends, Michelle Bryant, who runs a black radio show, and he waited until the last moment to go on there. And, according to her news feed, which is public record, he wanted to go on there and have pre-scripted questions. And, sisters, they want the real. And so in those Black Whitefish Bay wards, you saw a significant drop. And those are the wards where Milwaukee's black power brokers live.
Okay, so this is real basic for me. If you're a black candidate who's running, the first thing you do is lock down your base. You lock down black people. That's the first thing you do. That means that you lock down black radio, you lock down black newspapers, you lock down black digital. What that means is you make sure you're on the right shows. You make sure now, I'll tell you this here, and I ain't got a problem saying it. He did my show one time. Right, Carol? Was it once? One time. We didn't get any information from the campaign. And they never offered any surrogates to come on and talk about his campaign as well. He had the advantage of other candidates dropping out of the Democratic primary. So it's not like he had to go hard in a primary and then have to flip around and do a whole general election. And what's strange to me is if you and others are there, common sense says y'all would have been in connection with someone from the campaign whose sole job was to make sure black folks turned out. There was no person?
Brother, you got me on the spot here, brother. And
no, we're not. The whole deal is like this, real simple. We're not there, and so I would think you would know who that person was to lock up to make sure we're talking to black people. And if ain't no name, that means there was nobody.
Brother, and I appreciate Alicia Garza. There was a lot of people outside the state that really supported Mandela, and I got to give Mandela props because he's a lot more courageous than me to run for Senate in a state that's 85% white and, parts of it are, definitely not pro-black. I give him a lot of courage, but, since September, people have been trying to, ring the alarm because you know how our people get down. We feel the movement, we feel the vibes. And Milwaukee people are smart. We don't give our vote away. We've been involved in recalls, all types of elections, and I feel like, unfortunately, in my opinion, Mandela put his mask on. Paul Lawrence Dunbar talks about the mask, and he put it on and he didn't take it off. Mandela is from the hood. He went to Marshall High School. He's a NPS graduate. His dad is a real life dude. I love talking to his dad. And so I know sometimes when we got our double consciousness hat on, we think that we sometimes have to portray a certain way. And I do believe that he may have gotten caught up with putting his mask on. And if you do the vote, and at $12, $15 a vote, you know, if he'd have spent $1 million on black women, he'd have won, in my opinion.
Look, I reached out to some African-American Democratic operatives. I'm not going to read the text message I got from one because it was fire. And what was said to me was black consultants could barely get interviews on his campaign. And what you're describing and what I've heard from folks is that this is what happens when candidates, especially black candidates, hire white Democratic consultants to run their campaigns. And then what they do is they say, oh, you can't be too black. And to your point, they go so far and they blow off, and these white Democratic strategists assume, oh, we got them. So therefore, no need to spend money, no need to have an outreach. And the maths. There is no way to explain a black lieutenant governor running for U.S. Senate against a virulent racist like Ron Johnson, and you have that type of drop in Milwaukee. That means somebody wasn't taking care of home.
I'm gonna let you say that. I'm gonna let you say that, sir. But I know that we could have done it. And you saw that we black folks showed up for Tony Evers. You know, in some of the Browning suburbs. You know, we see black people being oftentimes a swing vote in those areas. And so we got 2024 looming, and I encourage all candidates not to play their hand like Brother Mandela. We have to have a black agenda. It has to be explicit. You have to have people on your campaigns who understand the community, that can't just parachute in. And so much is at stake here. You know, so much is at stake. And unfortunately, I feel like if we don't talk honestly about what happened to Brother Mandela's campaign, we might lose some of the wisdom that's here for us to act on.
Well, I can tell you this. I can tell you this because it's interesting. Okay, how about this here? Again, you know, typically when you have a lot of these black candidates running, whether it was Stacey Abrams, whether it was Raphael Warnock, Sherrod Beasley, you also had African-American entertainers or prominent figures around the country come in and campaign for them. Did you see any of that in Milwaukee or in Wisconsin for Barnes?
Well, me and my homies had, you know, the multi-platinum artist Boosie come in and do a nonpartisan event. You know, the last minute, he's so loved here. But, brother, there are so many
so that was it.
Local
Boosie.
artists.
I mean, I know Boosie, but that was it? Like, see, again, though, a campaign, if you got black folks on a campaign, you know how to make the phone call to say, hey, we need you to come in. We need you to, and it's just, again, it's mind-boggling to me. And I could just tell you, look, it was frustrating to me for Sherrod Beasley's campaign where I offered to come do my show and to come in, and they never called. Tim Ryan in Ohio never came on my show, and I was texting him over 15 months. I told him, you should have an event at the Cincinnati Music Festival, the largest black event in the state. Never heard from him. He didn't even call Alicia Reese, who's a commissioner in Hamilton County, the largest vote getter in the county. Never called her. And so, my deal is, we know how white candidates run. But a black candidate ain't got no excuse. None. But again, this is what happens when you listening, and I'm going to say it. You ain't got to say it, Biko. This is Roland Martin saying it. This is what happens when black candidates listen to white Democratic strategists, and what you're going to do is lose. Barnes could have been the 51st Senate. If Warnock wins, that's 52, and you cancel out Sinema and Manchin, you lose by 27,000 votes. I'm sorry. Smart person looks at the data and go, where were the 27,000 votes? right there in Milwaukee. Because I got a feeling out of 40,000 votes, 27,000 ain't no way in hell they were going to be voting for Ron Johnson.
Come on now. Come on now. And most of them are black women. I'm sure a lot of those consultants you talk to are black women. And me and my buddy were talking today, and he said Mandela was 10 handshakes away from winning. And, the thing is, I'm 45. I'm in between the millennials and Gen Zs and the elders. And one thing I would, really push all young candidates and leaders is to really shake your elders' hands, get in the front rooms, go to their hangouts. And when you do that, you not only win their trust, but you get the wisdom that's there. And it's difficult because, some of us are digital. I stay on my phone too much, but if we push through that, we have power. And that's why I really like your book. You're talking about the browning of America. That's what people are afraid of. They're afraid of our inherent political power. And if we stick together and work together, we can move mountains for sure, because we've done it before with less power.
That's absolutely crazy. And so, I'm sure he's kicking himself. 27,000 votes. I mean, look, Beasley lost by 135,000 in North Carolina. And if you're the Democratic Senate Congressional Campaign Committee, you should be kicking yourself in the butt too, because when you lose by 27,000 votes, that's a winnable race. That's winnable if, again, you hire and you listen to black people. It ain't that hard. Biko, man, I appreciate you coming on the show, giving us a sense of what happened in Milwaukee. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Go to my panel, Deanna, Matt, and Michael. Look, this ain't hard. Again, if you a black candidate and you didn't do that, shame on you.
I mean, we saw this same thing in 2020, right? Where we have candidates make these same mistakes of assuming that simply because they're black, they're going to get the black vote, right? And I think nothing could be further from the truth. You have to work for the black vote, right? People need to see beyond the identity politics of you being black, because time and time again, we've seen that not all skin folk are kinfolk, right? So not everybody that is black like you is going to be able to advocate or be for the same issues that you are for. So folks are tired of it. And I think, just like you said, why are folks listening to white consultants who have absolutely nothing to do with how the black community mobilizes, right? And I think something that repetitively shows up is the assumption that they have to work less simply because they're black. And it's lazy to make that assumption that because they're black, they're going to get those black votes. In fact, I think folks need to start to realize that if you could get the black vote, then it could be easier for you to get the rest of the communities that you want to get. Because I think the hardest vote for you to get is the black vote, simply because we've been screwed over time and time again, simply by listening to folks who say that they are for us simply because they look like us. And I think one of the other problems too, and we saw it in our mayor's race too here in LA, where leaders from Black Lives Matter LA called out a candidate that had historically been for the progressive cause and called them out for not having a lot of black folks surrounding them and hiring the whitest individuals that they could find, simply because they figured that's where their support would need to come from, instead of relying upon the communities that have historically had their back. And so if you go by that strategy, you will absolutely win. Don't assume because you're black, you're going to automatically get the endorsements of the black community, because believe it or not, folks like to feel like we're monolithic. We're not. We have our own minds, our own thoughts, right? And if a candidate ain't it, it ain't it. And we saw that once again in 2020, and we're going to continue to see it. Now, I think another problem that I saw, you put up the graphic of the numbers, right? $67 million spent for advertisements. That's a huge amount of money. Now, the problem with that, I understand that money has to be spent in order to win a political campaign, especially a political campaign against someone like Ron Johnson. I get that. However, now when a traditional average person is looking at that number and they don't see the trickle-down effect from the party, they don't see folks who are on the ground regularly coming coming from the Democratic National Committee who are doing the work on an everyday basis outside of these election times, and you see $67 million is being spent, then how would you not be angry? So that's my opinion. I think, yes, it has to do with who these candidates are surrounding themselves with. It absolutely has to do with Black candidates continually making the assumption that Black folks are going to vote for them simply because they too are Black. But it also has to do with folks not liking these numbers. There's a lot of things being clouded in these advertisements. People simply do not want to see advertisements, but then they don't see anyone knocking on their door. They don't see a trickle down as far as the resources that they have access to on the ground. If $67 million is being spent and folks aren't feeling like they have the basic resources and necessities that it takes for them to be who they are and to provide for their families, then you're going to have a problem, and you're absolutely going to have a disconnect when it comes time for who shows up at the polls as well.
Here's what I am utterly confused by, and I don't get it. I look at all these people talking about, man, you trying to get a job at the White House. I ain't never wanted to work on a campaign. I ain't never wanted to work for no politician. But this is real basic for me, Matt. This is real basic. How the hell do you hire people to be campaign managers who ain't from the state? I mean, okay, I'm from Texas. If my ass was running statewide in Texas, I might want to hire somebody who knows Texas. Why would I hire somebody who ain't from here, who don't know the joint, to run the campaign? That's so confusing to me. And so and the other thing is this here, and I got to say this here. If I'm the candidate, and again, I understand candidates got different roles, but I'm running my shit. I'm going to know if Black media ain't getting no money. I'm gonna be asking the question, yo, where we at in Milwaukee? Okay, now let me just use Texas, okay? First thing, I'm from Houston. So I'm running statewide. The first thing I'm gonna say is, I was born and raised in Clinton Park. So we gonna lock down Clinton Park. I went to Pleasantville Elementary and William Highland Middle School that's in Pleasantville. We're going to lock down Pleasantville. So we're going to lock down that whole side of Houston I'm from. I went to Jack Yates High School in 3rd Ward. We're going to lock down 3rd Ward. TSU is across the street, U of H is across the street. We locking down 3rd Ward. Then we're going to build from there. What I'm not going to do is run my ass to West Texas or East Texas first and not lock down home. Am I the crazy one?
No, you're not going to hire somebody from Lubbock to help you get elected when it comes to Houston. I'm with you completely. And beyond that, what I don't understand at all, I looked it up while you were talking to Brother Biko, is Wisconsin is 42% white, but it's 38% Black in the city of Milwaukee, from my understanding. So how do you not have a strategy, not only for Black women, which we know have been those who have come through for us, the heroes of recent elections and elections for a long time. But how do you not have a Black strategy when you're vying for that large a percentage of the vote? And I don't know if that's just a blind spot from his advisors, or if that's just him straight up pandering to whiteness.
No,
I don't
I'm telling you what it is. I'm telling you, these
makes no sense.
I'm telling you, Matt, Michael, you know this. These white strategists, they tell these Black candidates, first of all, you can't wear certain things. You can't say certain things. We don't want you going certain places, okay? So let's do this here. And so, no, we don't want to do that. They keep you away from doing all of that. And they assume, oh, we got them. We ain't got to pay them no mind. Show me a husband that don't pay his wife no mind. I'm going to show you a husband who ain't going to have a wife.
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa. Show me a candidate who ignore home. Show me somebody who gonna be at home after the election.
You know, Roland, when we did our election day coverage, and at the end, we gave closing statements, and I talked about the fact that we have to have an African American political infrastructure that we control, where we can finance our own campaigns. We can control our own campaigns. I was rooting for Mandela Barnes. And can you hear me?
Yeah, go. Keep going.
was rooting for, I heard somebody talking. I was rooting for Mandela Barnes. And about 6 weeks ago, he was ahead of Senator Ron Johnson. But what happened was they started dropping money on ads attacking Mandela Barnes on crime, okay? And they should have anticipated this. I talked about this before. They should have anticipated this. This is the Willie Horton 2022. They should have already anticipated that and already had this messaging out to combat that. But the other thing is, you're absolutely correct. We cannot take the African-American vote for granted. You have to have Black consultants that give you that African-American strategy so you can explain to people how your policies are going to benefit them and why they should come out their house and vote and show a contrast between you and your candidate. We can't just assume that they're going to come out and vote for you. So this brother lost, man. This brother lost by about 27,000 votes. And it'd be different if Ron Johnson was a decent guy, but he's not. He's a supremacist conspiracy theorist. And this who you lose to, man. We have to learn from this. We can't keep making mistakes like this over and over again.
All I'm saying is, I want to know who the hell was the campaign manager for Mandela Barnes. I want to know who was his media strategist. I want to know who was on the senior leadership team, because nobody should hire them again. Yeah, I said it. All right, y'all, I got to go to a break. We come back, we're going to shift and talk about Georgia. Of course, runoff there is December 6th. Totally different than 4 years ago. Incumbent Senator Raphael Warnock, Herschel Walker. GOP is already going hard. I don't know about y'all, but just from my perspective, the Democrats are sort of just coasting. I'm like, the election in 24 days. Y'all might want to have a little sense of urgency. We're going to talk with some grassroots groups who are focused on getting Black votes to folks to turn out in the election. We'll talk to them next. Support us on the Black Star Network. Download our app, of course, Black Star Network. Available on all OTT platforms: Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Also, you can join our Bring the Funk fan club. Your dollars make it possible for us to do what we do. P.O. Box, send your checking money orders to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com. Roland@RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Mind. Available at bookstores everywhere. Download it on Audible. Order through your favorite Black bookstore. We'll be right back.
It's about us. Everybody out together.
We are in sunny South Dallas. The election is coming up. It's super important that folks know who they are voting for, but more importantly, what they are voting for. Y'all, we got the free shirts and free lunch right over here.
Freedom is our birthright. No matter what we're up against, we're sending a message in Dallas and Texas and in this country. We won't back down. That's what this bus tour is all about.
The housing cost is one of the most capitalized areas that we have found. People who are marginalized, that are brown and Black, we are suffering the most, and I think that we have the biggest vote and the biggest impact in this election.
I'm voting for affordable housing, for sure.
We should not be paying the cost of a utility failure because our elected officials are too proud to say, we need help.
I know that we can bring out our people to vote. It's a part of our birthright. Right. It's a part of our heritage. And surely it's a part of our present and part of our future.
That's right. That's what's up. And we won't black down. Forward that message to 5 friends, because in that message, it's got links to how to get registered, how to check your registration status.
Like I said, 2:30 we'll start rendezvousing right here on this street. I am voting to let our voice be heard in the rural communities that, hey, we are people too. There are things that we need.
Free shirts, free food, and lots of power.
We are in Longview, Texas, where Black voters matter, 365.
Whatever type of oppression a white supremacist throws our way, we will not black down. We are in relentless pursuit of liberation of our people.
Freedom is liberation for black bodies and black communities to make economic change through political power.
Freedom is choice.
We won't black down.
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 My name is Charlie Wilson.
Hi, I'm Sally Richardson Whitfield.
And I'm Dodger Whitfield.
Hey everybody, this is your man Fred Hammond, and you're watching Roland Martin, my man, Unfiltered.
All right, folks, welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered. We are, of course, covering what is happening, still talking politics, and the focus is now on Georgia, folks. If you look at, actually, let me pull it up here. The New York Times map here. It is extremely tight in the United States Senate. Right now, it is showing 49 Republicans, 48 Democrats. And so you see their map here. You see Nevada, you see Arizona, and you see Georgia, that's gray. Well, the reality is this here. In Arizona, that is likely going to go to the Democrats. This is the results right here. Right now, Mark Kelly is leading by 5 points in Arizona. And so that is going to be a pickup for the Democrats, which means it's going to be 49-49. Now, votes are happening as we speak in Nevada. And the incumbent senator there is closing fast, and more than likely, she is going to be reelected there as well. And so let me see if I can pull these up. So these are the results right now. As you see, there's a huge tranche of votes that are being counted as we speak. 90% of the vote is in. Adam Laxalt has a 9,000 vote lead. Catherine Cortez Masto is down by 9,000. But again, based upon where this huge block of votes are coming from, it's Clark County. That's Las Vegas. And so that is a major Democratic stronghold. And so based upon the various analysis from folks there, they believe that she is going to overtake Laxalt and will be elected. Now, what's happening now, the governor in Nevada is likely going to lose, but Aaron Ford, the black attorney general, was declared the winner a little bit earlier. And so they expect Cortez Masto to also win, which means that's going to be 50-49, which means that the Georgia race will be the difference maker to whether or not it is a 50-50 U.S. Senate. Democrats will still maintain control, or if it's 51-49. That's huge. That's why the Mandela Barnes race was so huge, because had he won, that potentially could have been 52-48. And so that's what we're talking about. Joining us right now is Helen Butler, Executive Director of the Georgia Coalition for the People's Agenda, joining us from Alpharetta, Georgia. Kendra Cotton is the CEO for the New Georgia Project Fund. Glad to have both of you here. Y'all are doing the work there. Georgia Stand Up is doing the work. Black Voters Matter is doing the work. Folks there on the ground as well. And Kendra, I want to start with you. Because, and again, this is just me. I sent a text message to a variety of people, donors, also prominent Democrats, to Senator Warnock and others, the day after, saying, hey, time is of the essence. Bottom line is, these other folk, they are preparing. We talked about yesterday how Mitch McConnell, he has already cut a deal to pay for Brian Kemp's Get Out the Vote operation, the 100 field workers, as well as the senior aides as well. The evangelicals, I got a text message earlier today. It says right here, give me 1 second. It says, let me find it. Where's the text message? I was hitting a bunch of people today, said, let's see here, where is it? It says the evangelicals and Christian stations are getting booked fast. They're locking up all the ads there. And so the Republicans, they are sitting here circling the wagons. And so black voters are going to be critical as well. Your groups are nonpartisan. But what are you seeing when it comes to both of these campaigns when it comes to this runoff? And are you seeing folks laying the groundwork to really go after black voters to get them energized to vote the second time in the runoff?
So I can tell you unequivocally the answer is yes. We fully expect Senate Majority PAC to come in through America Votes, which is the C4 table, to make significant investments into this race. As you articulated when you kicked this off, we are looking at being the 51st Senate seat, and I don't think anyone is taking that lightly. You always want to have as much cushion as possible when you're talking about, possibly retaining control. We are looking, we had a strategy session, New Georgia Project Action Fund yesterday. We are looking already at laying the groundwork for an apparatus that's going to put people on the doors on Monday morning. We did 388 shifts on November the 8th, which was a general election. We will have the capacity on Monday morning to send out 388 shifts again. We're looking at right now at an operation. We huddled with AV. We were thinking that we would probably need to knock about 500,000 doors. That's looking more like we need to knock about 1 million doors. That's going to take about $3.7 million, and we fully expect that funding and those resources to come in.
Helen?
Well, Roland, thank you. And just like Kendra said, we too are really working to do the turnout. We did a strategy session as well, and we're getting our people on the ground. We've already started phone banking, text banks. We're going to be hitting doors. We're going to be doing our election protection activities again, because one of the things we found on November 8th that we had to make sure our people were able to exercise their right to vote. And we know that there'll be lots of challenges, but we're educating people today about how to handle those challenges. I was on a radio station in Atlanta, making sure that people know what to do, what the deadlines are, and to remember that they've got to come back out. We only have 1 week of early voting, so it's critical that we turn out every vote that we can. We're providing rides to the polls to make sure people get to the polls. So we are doing everything we can to ensure that people turn out as they did in 2020 and 2021.
And we're talking about, again, the turnout efforts. One thing I talked to folks during the general, and they said there was so much concentration on, obviously, Atlanta and the Atlanta metro area. But the reality is, in order for, to really reach black folks, look, you got to go beyond Atlanta. And so you've got Albany, Columbus, Swainsboro, Statesboro, Savannah, Augusta, Athens, a number of different areas. And so for both of you, is your strategy also those places? I know Black Voters Matter. I worked with them in 2020 when they were also in many of those places, really going out in those places and driving those numbers up as well. So therefore, folks are not depending upon Atlanta for a massive turnout.
Let me just start off. We go, Roland, where our people are. Okay, New Georgia Project Action Fund during this last general election cycle was in 25 counties. Georgia has 159 counties, but we focus our resources where Black and brown people specifically live and work. We are laser focused on those communities. We're actually focused on what we like to describe as high opportunity voters. I know a lot of people describe them as low propensity voters, but they are not. High opportunity voters are voters who might be infrequent voters. They're the ones that you have to do some civic education with regard to, policy outcomes and what we call the heart issues that are going to make them turn into super voters. Because it is never, ever, ever about connecting someone to a particular candidate. There are no saviors out here. We are looking for folks who want to move the needle towards a more progressive Georgia. And these are folks that aren't going to show up on the walk list for any particular candidate. These are the voters who are out there who are often left behind. They're the infrequent voters, because what we know in our organizations and the grassroots ecosystem across Georgia, that those are the people that you have to convince to come out. Those are the people that are going to turn the tide, because this is a game of margins. Most candidates, political parties, traditional organizations out here in Georgia, they don't take the time to invest in our communities in particular, especially where Black and brown folks are concerned, where young people are concerned. And they certainly don't do it in between election cycles like we do. All of us are on the ground 365, 24/7. We ain't new to this. We true to it.
And we have 7 offices across the state that covers 53 that we work on, like Kendra said, 365 days a year. So we're working in those counties. For the election protection activities, we covered 96 of the 159 counties in Georgia. So we're there making sure we concentrate on people of color that will turn out to vote and will exercise their right to vote. We're getting them there. Again, we're providing free rides to the polls. We're educating them. We did a Your Vote, Your Voice tour to educate them about the changes. We'll be educating them again and making sure that when we show up, we'll have that ride to the poll. You just go with us, and we will make sure your vote gets counted.
One of the things that when we talk about where we are today, Kendra, I'll start with you, and that is a lot of the focus is on door knocking, is going block by block, and I believe that is valuable. But different voters operate in different ways. You have voters out there, especially young voters. It has to be a strong social game as well. Also, when I start thinking about different ways, I was watching a movie, and it was very interesting how I've watched different movies, and I've seen ads run targeting different audiences based upon the movie that's actually playing. Then you also begin to talk about, obviously, even old school billboards, and people talk about signs and things along those lines. And so I'm curious to know, from your vantage point, what type of innovative things beyond door knocking, going door to door, that y'all have been doing at the New Georgia Voter Project to really reach, especially young voters who perform amazing across the country on election day. But now you got to replicate that. And so I'm very curious to know, what are you doing that's outside of the traditional door knocking?
Yeah, so let me just, okay, I'm not young, right? I'm 45. I've got three kids, 21, 18, and 15. And so I know a little bit about how they are getting their news and getting their information. And so NGPAF, New Georgia Project Action Fund, what we try to do is we hit these folks because our sweet spot is really the 18 to 35 crowd. You know, again, those high opportunity voters, trying to get them engaged. And so I don't know if you subscribe or follow our social media on Instagram, on TikTok, Facebook for the older set. But we are trying to innovate out here. In 2020, we partnered with some other groups to do, Get Your Booties to the Polls, where we took a lot of flack for that. The aunties didn't like it, but it wasn't for them. Where we had, strippers really giving a message out there, hey, it's important for everyone to vote. We leave no stone unturned. We try to take, things that are out there just kind of in the ethos that, if it's a funny clip, if it's a trend on TikTok, we always try to kind of manipulate it, reorient it. So we're reaching communities that are interested in that through, where they are, making it funny. We live in a society right now where it's all about instant gratification. Too long didn't read is a sickness around here, but we understand it. And so we accommodate. We know how to communicate with folks on Twitter in 140 characters. Despite, Elon trying to tear it down and burn it down to the ground, we're still there. But what I am saying is, yes, all of those things work. We put money behind digital ads. What I know is there's a lot of people out there like me. I have Hulu. I have other, different applications where I get my, television watching or whatever, but I pay for the ad-free stuff. So this idea that we can run a 1994 kind of campaign and throw millions and millions of dollars just up on ads and expect that to actually go into folks' homes, you're going to miss an entire segment of the population because there are people that are just completely disconnected and checked out of that type of media. I'm one of them. So again, social media is absolutely critical for us getting the message out and communicating to the voters that we need to show up on December 6th.
Helen, how are you using targeted media to deliver to specific audiences?
Well, we also, as Kendra said, we have the Black Youth Vote, which is a part of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation. They're doing all of the social media. In fact, we have a part of our election protection team that does nothing but combat disinformation and misinformation, and also getting them out to vote. We're doing targeted media for Black media, especially to reach those communities where they are. Social media for the young people, and I have to give credit And kudos to the young people for showing up on this last election where we thought they weren't going to show up, but they showed up in record numbers, like as well as Black males. We're working with Black Male Initiative to really focus on Black males, getting them to the polls and voting in record numbers. And they did that this last election cycle. So we're going after them again, targeting them with the messaging and having people like them. Mary Pat Hector leads our Black youth vote. She speaks their language. I don't. But in the Black Male Initiative, the young Black males talk the language that the guys understand. And so getting them to understand that this is critical, that they be engaged in this process. And we're out there making sure we do that with all of our Black media that reaches our people as well as the social media.
Kendra, I want to go back to you were talking about content and different type of content is important. What have you developed? What are you using? And you mentioned earlier in terms of attention span as well. And so with the content that you've created or developed, is it a combination of 60 second, 30 second, 15 second, longer? So really, what is in your arsenal and how are you deploying that? But are you also sharing that with other organizations so therefore they are also amplifying the messages that you put together?
Yes, so you hit the nail on the head. 15, 30, 60 seconds is probably the max that you're going to get somebody's attention. Again, it can come in the form of ads. It can come into form, like I said, of a TikTok, all those types of things. Anything that we can try to get trending, right? And if something is trending, we will piggyback on that trend and, again, morph it into a voting message. I do want to elevate the fact that Georgia has a very sophisticated progressive ecosystem out here. And so I do want to elevate Progress Georgia. It is our communications apparatus for the C4 table when we're talking about voter mobilization efforts here in the state. And so Progress Georgia does a lot to unify the messaging so that we are all on one accord when we're speaking to Georgians. And these are primarily Black and brown Georgians. Now, again, each of our organizations also do, invest resources into a communication strategy. But again, it's the usual suspects that I've already elevated: TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, anything that we can do. And I don't want to be remiss and not, emphasize that, Black radio still remains critical in getting messaging out, right? Podcasts, Spotify, that is critical in getting our messaging out. We, pushing ads on all different types of platforms. And we still do, Roland, I want to be clear, reach out to traditional Black media like newspapers, particularly in some of those more southern counties and locales that you elevated at the top of the conversation.
All right, then. Well, look, it is going to be a mad dash, absolutely, over as I said, the next 24 days. You mentioned, Helen, that's 1 week of early voting. That starts, the 20th? When is that?
November the 28th.
So early voting starts November 28th. It's just for that particular week. Election day is December 6th. And so a lot's going to be happening. And so we're going to be there on the ground doing some stuff. And so look forward to...
we look forward to you volunteering with us, Roland.
I ain't.
Well, he has to come to us as well.
Okay.
So
I know. I ain't there volunteering because my staff don't volunteer. They want to check. Them crew members ain't volunteering when they get on that plane, just letting y'all know. So we
might be able to work something out.
All you gotta do is call me, because trust me, they want to check direct deposit to work.
But Roland, wait, before you jump, I do want to throw out there, because I will be remiss if I don't mention this, but you do know, because of SB 202, that the voter registration deadline for this election was November 7th.
Oh, I know. Oh no, I talked about it on the show the other day, that was by design. First of all, they shrank the runoff dates, and they also put the deadline to register for the runoff the day before the general election.
Before we even knew it was a runoff.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but again, that's the type of voter suppression efforts that Republicans have been doing all across the country. And so, now both of y'all really messed up. Y'all got to learn how to work in your website to give. See, not one of y'all did that.
Donate to the people'sagenda.org.
No, when you trying to get money, you got to put that in early. You can't wait till the end. Helen, you first. Go ahead.
Okay, donate to the people'sagenda.org, thepeoplesagenda.org.
All right, Kendra.
And mine is www.ngpaf.org.
All right, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Matt, Michael, Indiana, real quick with y'all. I'll go to you first, Michael, and that is this. I go to Matt first. This is real simple. These grassroots groups are going to be vital for driving the vote out. As I keep saying, these campaigns with these white strategists, all they want to do is put all the money on television. Georgia's going to be saturated with TV ads over the next 3 weeks. People are going to tune those things out. I think money is better spent. Yeah, you got to run TV ads. I think money is absolutely better spent poring over those numbers, seeing where you had weak or decent turnout and saying, focus on that and bump those numbers up. And that's going to be sending people on the ground into those cities, into those counties, into those neighborhoods to be able to touch people 2, 3, and 4 times to make sure they're voting early or they're showing up on December 6th.
I think you're 100% right. I think you hit the nail on the head, and I especially think you have to do that to further leverage that gap you see between the people who voted for Kemp and who did not vote for Herschel Walker. So obviously there's a lot of space to be made there, and I think you're exactly right. Not only through targeted ads, but using that money to make sure that you're, targeting those people that are particularly not vulnerable, but high opportunity voters, to use Kendra's terminology, especially because we see that Georgia is firmly in play and, God willing, will go to Warnock. So I think hopefully they use that money prudently along the lines of the ways that you suggested, particularly because, Kemp won, unfortunately, but obviously a lot of those people did not vote for him and didn't vote straight ticket. So I think that presents a huge opportunity, one that needs to be, prudently leveraged through good use of the money.
The thing here, I'll say this here, Michael, again, when we were talking about how you connect with people, let's be real clear. The right, they are about to unleash a ton of money and a ton of people against Warnock. They changed the laws to purposely keep folks from voting. That's the strategy. Look, Warnock got more votes than Herschel in the general election. He has to replicate that, and there can be no assuming folks are going to show up just because.
Exactly. It's going to be even harder to get people out on December 6th after Thanksgiving than it was to get people out on November 8th. Now, I think a lot of people in Georgia, I think a lot of African Americans know what's at stake, but you can't take that for granted. You have to have your machinery that is on the ground, knocking on people's doors, touching people, explaining to them what's at stake, and explaining to them not just what's at stake, but how Warnock's policies are going to make their lives better. The other thing that's important, and we saw it lacking here in, especially in Michigan, but especially in Detroit in 2016 with Hillary Clinton, you need to have those lawn signs out as well, those Warnock lawn signs, because that generates an intensity. That adds to it. That's part of it. It generates an intensity. It generates an enthusiasm. And people drive down your street, things like this. They see those Warnock signs. That gives presence as well. But this is for all the marbles. I think Warnock's going to be able to pull it out. I think the Democrats will end up with 51 U.S. senators. But this is for all the marbles. This is the real deal right here. So it all comes down to Georgia, December 6th. We got to pull out all the stops. And yeah, they're going to dump a bunch of money into it. Brian Kemp is now stomping for Herschel Walker as well. You're going to have Lindsey Graham stomping for him. A lot of these Republican senators, So we have to be ready and we have to win.
And again, it matters. Go to my, let's see here. Do we have it up? Let's see here. I just got an update memo here as a tweet. To give you an example, that race in Nevada, new batch in Laxalt's lead has now dropped from 9,000 votes to 800.
Whoa,
and so,
right, yeah.
She is closing real fast. Wow. Cortez Masto. And so, as we said, we expect by later tonight, Deanna, but later tonight, we expect that she will be in the lead. And so that'll put Democrats at 50-49. Going back to Georgia, in terms of that grassroots campaign, it's going to be a lot of dark money going in there. And again, these Christian radio stations are going to be going hard for Herschel Walker. And so people have to understand, and especially these grassroots group, really going to have to go after that 1835. They can make the difference in Georgia. And the thing that Democrats can't do in Georgia and that worked in Michigan and Pennsylvania, they can't ride the abortion issue. According to the exit polls, only 53% of folk felt that was, in terms of, that was like the major issue. It was like 60 plus in Michigan and Pennsylvania. They're going to have a very clear message to black voters, especially young black voters, to motivate them to come out for Warnock over Herschel Walker.
Absolutely. They're going to have to show that there is no stone left unturned, right? So they're going to have to put money on the ground, equip the organizers who have been doing this work. There's organizers on the ground who do this work 365 days out of the year. They need to put their money where their mouth is, making sure that these organizations are equipped at every level, not just with the volunteers that they need, but with the monetary resources that they need to sustain themselves and to go up against the Republican Party, which I'm sure will be throwing every single thing that they have. And I think something that we also need to stop doing is being very lazy in the fact that we make so many promises as a party, as a Democratic Party. There are so many promises that are made in order to secure folks' vote, but then yet we still don't have a John Lewis Voting Rights Act, yet we still don't have a George Floyd Justice in Policing Act, right? So there's a lot of young folks like myself, I'm 28 years old, I'm a millennial, who don't see a lot of trickle down in regard to the message that's being sent out from Election Day and actual deliverables, right? So that's what young folks want to see. Young folks want to know that one day we'll be able to own homes, right? There's so many things that are happening. And while we're seeing a little bit of traction, something that you absolutely have to give credit to the Republican Party for, and I can't even believe that I'm saying this, is that when they're in power, they do so unapologetically, not caring, not giving a damn about what the other party, meaning the Democratic Party, thinks about what they're doing. And we need to be equally as unapologetic when we do secure the votes that I'm sure we'll get in order to control the U.S. Senate. Because like Michael, I do believe that we will take control of the Senate. But now the problem is, what do we do once we are given that power? And we no longer have to worry, in my opinion, about what members of the Republican Party think. Instead, focus on the Democratic base, the base who has shown up, shown out consistently, but yet many times have been given nothing in return, right? And so now, like you said, this is for all of the marbles, right? People now want to see between now and 2024 that there is going to be deliverables that we get. And so in order to get that, folks are going to want to see not only the promises that are made on a regular basis, people are going to want to see that when you do get power, that you're no longer going to be worrying about what the other party feels, but instead going hard for the message. And even if, much like we saw with Joe Biden rolling out the student loan forgiveness plan, and then we see now that a court is blocking that from moving forward, at least we know that there's a real fight, right? We want the Justice Department to be able to fight against that. We want the administration to leverage every resource within its arsenal to make sure that folks do get that student loan debt forgiveness. But there's other things that we want to see as well.
Gotcha.
Something that Donald Trump Trump did all the time was whenever he moved forward with a certain executive order decision, each and every time that a judge came down and said, actually, that's unconstitutional, he just continued to do it until they said you can't do it anymore. So why is it that we don't see this administration doing the exact same thing? Now, am I saying to go against the laws of this land? No, I'm not. But I'm saying let's have a backbone. Let's have a spine to say that we don't care what you think. We're going to do what we need to do to make sure that our base is happy.
Let me give an update here, folks. Go to my iPad, please. The Los Angeles mayor's race. This tweet, Karen Bass is taking the lead in the race. She now leads Rick Caruso 50.4% to 49.6%. And expect as more of these ballots are counted, expect her lead to grow. All right, folks, got to go to break. We come back. We're going to be talking about the issue of black sperm. Okay, there are people out there who go to sperm banks looking for donors, but what's going on with black sperm donors being down across the country? We'll talk about that next, right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Don't forget, download our app on all these platforms: Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV, Roku. You can also, of course, support us by joining our Bring the Funk fan club. Our goal is to get 2,000 fans this month, giving $50. That's $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. Not only are you supporting this show, you're supporting the 5 other shows on the Black Star Network. We are working on a 24-hour fast channel. We got 3 other shows that are in development, so lots of things going on. You are helping us build this black-owned media platform. We don't have millionaires and billionaires cutting us checks, and so we got an opportunity, again, for you to support us in what we do. So please do so right here. Send a check and money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear: How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Available at all bookstores, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and of course Target. And you can also download the book on Audible. We'll be right back.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, less than 5% of the top executive positions in corporate America are held by women of color. We know it's not because of talent. A recent study says that it's microaggressions, unconscious bias, and limited opportunities being offered to women of color. On our next show, we're going to get incredible advice from Francine Parham, who's recently written a book sharing exactly what you need to do to make it up into the management ranks and get the earnings that you deserve.
I made a point to sit down and I made a point to talk to people. And I made a point to be very purposeful and thought-provoking when I spoke to them.
That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I am on screen, and I am representing what a black man is to the entire world that's going to see this. And this might be the only black man, a representation of a black man that they see.
Right.
So I am responsible.
Right.
For how they see black men. And it's my responsibility to, if I am not playing an upstanding, honorable, someone with a strong principle and moral core, to make sure that this character is so specific.
Right.
That it is him, not black men. And I wish that more actors would realize how important their position is as an actor of color, playing people of color on screen. Because there are people that see us all over the world in these different images that we portray. And not everyone knows black people to know.
Yes.
That's not all.
How y'all doing? It's your favorite funny girl, Amanda Seals.
Hi, I'm Anthony Brown from Anthony Brown and Group Therapy.
What up, Lana Well, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered. Florida. Every election year when Florida came up, it was a competitive race there. I'm talking about it was a battle. It was always battle for Florida. I think, what was it, Tim Russert who said in 2000, Florida, Florida, Florida. That race came down between George W. Bush and Al Gore. And you had competitive U.S. Senate races. I don't know what the hell's happened to Florida now. Democrats have, I can't think of any other, actually I can. The only other place I can think of where Democrats have absolutely gotten destroyed and just flipped really is Texas. Now Florida is not, you do have some folks who are elected statewide in Florida who are Democrat. Texas, they got everything. But look at the Senate race this year. You had feckless Senator Marco Rubio, who was facing Congresswoman Val Demings. And Rubio gets 4.47 million votes. Val Demings gets almost 3.2 million votes. Folks, she lost by 1.2 million votes to Marco Rubio. That is a huge, huge number. And when you think about that race, then you think about the governor's race. And again, you had folks there in Florida who was talking about, how it was going to be important. You've got Charlie Crist, former governor and former congressman, running, and people were saying, "Hey, man, this really could be it." Yo, he got straight ass destroyed by Governor Ron DeSantis. My next guest, she even tweeted how bad it was, how he got beat in some counties by other candidates. Go look at the numbers right here. DeSantis got 4.6 million votes. Chris got 3.1 million. He got beat by 1.5 million, a larger margin than Val Demings. Nikki Barnes, a political consultant, if y'all been looking at her Twitter feed, she's been just blasting the leadership of folks there in Florida, including the head of the Florida Democratic Party, Manny Diaz, and she posted this about an hour ago. Florida Dems Chair Manny Diaz's email to the members of Florida Dems Party leadership, doubling down on not resigning and running a campaign of grievances as to why. If you feel he should be removed, call your county Dem Party leadership and insist they join the 67% needed to vote him out. Nikki, here's what I don't understand. I don't understand how you get beat down and then still be in power.
Yeah, I don't understand how you get beat down and still be in power either. That's a really, really good question. After the 2020 election here in Florida, Manny was elected to be the Florida Dems chair for our state on a rebuild platform. Familiar with Florida, you know that Biden lost Florida and it was blamed on money and resources and ground organizing and things that needed to be done. And so Manny is supposed to come in and fix all of this stuff. And this has probably been our most vacant state party chair we've ever had. We've never seen him on TV. We never see him on local media. We never see him talking about anything to galvanize Democrats. And there's a lot going on in Florida. There's a lot to talk about to get earned media and make the case for Democrats here in Florida. And he said nothing for 20 months.
He claims here, he lays out all of these things that happened about nationally. Then he says, go to my iPad, Henry. He goes, but here in Florida, Democrats stayed home. And then he talked about the need to rebuild the party. He talked about lacking the resources and funding necessary to compete in Florida. We've lost ground to Republicans that can't be made up in a single cycle. We've lost 16 of the last 17 statewide elections since 2012, and our party has had 5 different chairs in the past 10 years. Now, also, in looking at the letter here, he then tries to blame the national folks by saying national Democratic organizations made a determination about Florida. Funding and resources that have helped keep our state competitive were zeroed out and redirected elsewhere this cycle. While in the 2018 midterm elections, the national organizations invested nearly $60 million to Florida Democratic efforts. In 2022, their investments plummeted to $1.3 million, barely 2% of what we got in 2018. Dude, you just said we've been getting our ass kicked. If you're gonna lose by 1.5 million votes for governor, 1.3 million votes for U.S. senator, ain't nobody gonna give you any money. That's just a waste of money.
Exactly, and that's the campaign of grievances that I referenced in my tweet. You know, you got to give, first of all, Jamie Harrison has done an amazing job since he's been the DNC chair, and Jamie has been to Florida trying to help Florida get some sort of rebuild going. But what you've got to give the DNC, the DSCC, the D-TRIP, DGA, and any other organization that helps elect Democrats, you've got to give them something to invest in. Manny Diaz gave them nothing. He literally was like, just give us money and hopefully we'll figure it out. And the larger party was like, you know what? No, we're going to invest this where we know we can win more seats. The Democrats had a great night Tuesday all across the country because those states had plans to win. Florida wasn't part of that group because there was no plan to win in Florida. And I'm not going to let Manny scapegoat this because Val Demings was well funded. What's supposed to happen at the state party level is that the chair builds the infrastructure in the state to ensure that funding is invested into bringing out candidates. Val is an amazing candidate. So it's not a candidate issue. It is a state party infrastructure issue. Things that we did not have, like we had in 2018 or in previous years when we came real close in those margins. And Roland, you're right. Charlie, I mean, there are cabinet candidates that got more votes in Broward, Miami-Dade, and Palm Beach County than Charlie Crist. Down ballot statewide Democrats outperformed Charlie Crist. That's on the chair of the party.
Manny Diaz, former mayor of what city?
Miami.
Didn't Ron DeSantis win Miami-Dade County, the first Republican to do so in 20 years? So basically, the chairman of the Florida Democratic Party couldn't even hold his own damn county.
Not only couldn't hold his county, let's go back to why he was elected over a Black woman who ran for chair 2 years ago. The issue in Florida was we've got to get the Hispanic vote back. And for whatever reason, these Democrats believed, yes, we neighbor Georgia, we need a Stacey Abrams, but we got to get these other voters in Miami back first. So what better way to do that than to elect a Cuban Democrat from Miami? Now, how did that work out on Tuesday?
Wow. That is crazy. Now, before I go to my panel with questions, we also have some drama here where Donald Trump, who is so pissed off because his candidates got drubbed, he's been tweeting up a storm, and he acted a fool by suggesting that he sent in the FBI and the DOJ to stop vote counting in 2018 to help Ron DeSantis, who only beat Andrew Gillum by 30,000 votes. Nikki Fried, she, of course, has already sent a letter asking the DOJ to investigate, to request an official response to the wild allegations made by a Florida resident last night claiming credit for the outcome of the 2018 elections, Ron DeSantis and Rick Scott. You've also been raising the questions as well. Now, granted, we know Donald Trump lies about lies, but someone got to pay attention to him suggesting that he sent them in to stop the vote counting. And it worked.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
absolutely. You know, Donald Trump runs his mouth and we like it, right? But we can read that message and we can see what he's telling DeSantis. He's telling DeSantis, you owe me. I made you. You only won this seat because I endorsed you. I campaigned for you. And then he's taking it one step forward and saying, during that recount, I fixed this for you. So how dare you try to act like you're going to lead the Republican Party after I made you? So we get what he's saying, but for us that are on the ground here in Florida who works for Andrew Gillum, oh, we a little salty right now. What do you mean you fixed it? What does that mean? What do you mean you sent folks in during the recount? What does that mean? And then you go back to the previous tweets from Marco Rubio and Rick Scott trying to accuse Democrats of, quote unquote, stealing an election. But now Trump says he fixed it? What does that mean?
It definitely needs to be investigated. Let's hear questions for Nikki for our panel. Deanna, you're first.
So, Nikki, my question to you is, what do you think went wrong as far as the ground game? And what strategies do you think the party on the ground needs to employ to make sure something like this never happens again?
Yeah, so in Florida, what went wrong was not having a ground game, right? There was a severe lack of enthusiasm with the candidates that came through the primary, right? But there wasn't unity amongst our statewide ticket to try to bridge that gap. There are going to be areas where Val Demings is very popular. She needs to campaign in those areas. There'll be areas where Charlie Crist is very popular. He needs to campaign in those areas. And the down ballot statewide ticket, the same thing. The goal is to bring your collective base together to get Democrats across the finish line. And we didn't even see the turnout we saw 4 years ago. Democrats stayed home in Florida.
Of course, you also have Republicans that have invested heavily in registering people, and they've actually surpassed Democrats. Democrats used to hold a lead for more registered voters in Florida. Now they no longer have that particular lead. Michael, your question.
All right, Nikki, I've seen stories about the community outreach centers that the Republican National Committee has put in Florida, and I think in Arizona also, to do outreach to the Latino, to the Hispanic community. Can you talk about the type of success they've had with things like that? And also, can you, the Democrats had the problem, especially in Florida, of looking at the Hispanic community as like one community and not understanding the differences when you have Cubans, Colombians, things like this. Can you talk about the difference in the where people are coming from, the different countries, some of the differences in the Latino community as well? Because Democrats keep making this mistake, election cycle after election cycle.
Yeah, so people are aware Florida has a very diverse Latino community, right? So we have the Cubans, the Venezuelans, the Puerto Ricans, the Colombians, Dominicans. They're not a monolith. And they're not all here in Florida for the exact same reason. So what the Republicans have done very well here in Florida is they've acknowledged you're here for better. Very simple, right? And so they've put these centers in place in various parts of large immigrant communities, trying to teach them what it means to be here for better, what resources we have, how Republicans are going to help you. And they kind of tie into that, that narrative of you left where you came from because it's better here. Let me show you how to be better here in the state of Florida and why you want to be a Republican here. And they've been very successful at hammering that message and getting people to vote for better by sharing resources, educational pieces, helping people find housing and everything else. So the Republican Party will make you think that they're against immigration on a national level, but in Florida, they are very pro-resource to those communities. Whereas Democrats, specifically in the Miami-Dade area, where we're going wrong is our Democratic Party in Miami is very left progressive ideology, right? And so they're meeting these people in their communities and they're talking about, social issues, Medicare for all, and they're knocking on doors with T-shirts on, with fists in the air that say Latinx. And these people are coming from countries that had leftist regimes that were hostile. So when they're being met by these Democrats, they look like who they fled. And so that reinforces the vote for Republican in South Florida.
That's why that democratic socialism stuff doesn't go over well with a lot of Latinos, like Cubans in Florida.
That's why they can get away with calling us socialist, socialista, comunista in Florida, because you have a young person that says Latinx with a fist in the air. And Republicans, they bite on that. They said they're communists. They're leftist communists. And they vote accordingly.
All right, thank you.
Matt?
Well, I was going to actually ask something kind of similar. I'm in Texas, and I think they make the same mistakes as it relates to Democrats and Hispanic folks here in Texas. But my question is kind of two-part. One, what did you see in terms of the abortion messaging, and what, if any, effect did that have on anything? And then going forward, how do Democrats change the messaging in Florida, specifically using what you just referenced in terms of the regimes that they fled, to make more targeted and more effective messaging? And I ask that because I think Texas can learn a lot of those same lessons, considering the demographic here.
Yeah, so when Roe was overturned, and that was during our primary here in Florida, I think it woke a lot of voters up, right? And said, wait a minute, we're going to have to get out here and vote. Now I'm paying attention. Who are my pro-choice candidates? How can I make this argument? But since Roe was overturned, one thing that DeSantis does very well in Florida is creating constant chaos. So other things come up since Roe, right? We had a major hurricane in this state. Homeowners insurance companies bail out of this state. Housing got out of control once again. People were dropped from insurance. Just a whole bunch of other chaos happened. So it put Roe on the back burner for now, because Florida still has a 15-week limit. And so when people were talking about, zeroing out abortion altogether and not having that right, voters were looking at that like, well, in Florida, I still have 15 weeks. But today, I have no homeowners insurance because I got canceled. So I'm going to deal with that in the next session. I need solutions for right now. And so, you got to continue with the public sentiment of the state. Yeah, it was a big national issue, but in Florida, in the university areas, maybe more of a concern, but even not so much of that because the students didn't turn out to vote. It's been a housing crisis and low wages in Florida, and that's where the party should have pivoted and hammered down about how we're going to ensure you have more money in your pocket going into the new year.
All right. Well, we will certainly see what happens. You have made your feelings known regarding Manny Diaz. And so one of he'll be giving you a call soon, asking for advice.
I doubt it.
Nikki, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Uncle Rob.
All right. Take care. All right, folks, got to go to a break. We come back. What's going on with the dramatic drop in black sperm donors across the country? You got black women who are saying, I want to have a black kid, but ain't much to choose from. We'll talk to an expert next on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
It's about us. Everybody out together. We are in sunny South Dallas. The election is coming up. It's super important that folks know who they are voting for, but more importantly, what they are voting for. Y'all, we got the free shirts and free lunch right over here.
Freedom is our birthright. No matter what we're up against, we're sending a message in Dallas and Texas and in this country. We won't back down. That's what this bus tour is all about.
The housing cost is one of the most capitalized areas that we have found. People who are marginalized, that are brown and black, we are suffering the most, and I think that we have the biggest vote and the biggest impact in this election.
I'm voting for affordable housing, for sure.
We should not be paying the cost of a utility failure because our elected officials are too proud to say we need help.
I know that we can bring out our people to vote. It's a part of our birthright. It's a part of our heritage, and surely it's a part of our present and part of our future.
That's right. That's what's up. And we won't black down. Forward that message to 5 friends, because in that message, it's got links to how to get registered, how to check your registration status.
Like I said, 2:30 we'll start rendezvousing right here on this street. I am voting to let our voice be heard in the rural communities that, hey, we are people too. There are things that we need.
Free shirts, free food, and lots of power.
We are in Longview, Texas, where Black Voters Matter, 365.
Whatever type of oppression a white supremacist throws our way, we will not black down. We are in relentless pursuit of liberation of our people.
Freedom is liberation for black bodies and black communities to make economic change through political power.
Freedom is choice.
We won't black down.
We won't black down.
We won't black down, y'all.
We won't black down.
We won't black down.
We won't black down.
Hey, I'm Antonique Smith.
Hey, I'm Arnez J.
Hi, this is Cheryl Lee Ralph, and you are watching Roland Martin, Unfiltered. I mean, could it be any other way? Really? It's Roland Martin.
First told you about Javonte Williams back in September. He is still missing. He was last seen in a white Kia on the 29th in Chicago, August 29th in Chicago. The 16-year-old is 5 feet 6 inches tall, weighs 130 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. On his right arm, he has a bunny tattoo and the word heartless tattooed on his stomach. When Javonte disappeared, he was wearing a red hooded sweatshirt, black and green sweatpants, and black shoes. Anyone with information about Javonte Williams should call the Chicago Police Department at 312-747-8274. All right, black women are showing up at sperm banks looking for black sperm donors. They want a black baby. The problem is there's a severe shortage, and they literally are having to pick sperm of folk from other races. According to the Genetic Literacy Project, only 1,000 applicants of all races make it through the screening process, which also attributes to the black donor shortage. Less than 2% of black sperm donors are specimens in the nation's 4 largest cryobanks. Dr. Tiffany Jones is a reproductive endocrinology and infertility specialist. She joins us now from Dallas. Tiffany, glad to have you here. I mean, it's one of those things, I mean, you just don't think about. You know, there are people out there, and people just think that, you know, folks, they get pregnant, that they have children, but there are people who actually go to sperm banks. But 2%, so in the nation, 2% of all available sperm donors are black?
Yeah, that's a scary statistic, but it's very true. It's very hard to recruit African-American donors, and black women aren't the only women who want to use black donors. And so with
now give me an idea of, do we have a percentage of how many black, of the people who go on to sperm banks, how many are black women?
I would say from my patient population, probably at least 40% of them.
So you got 40% of folks, again, 40% are black women, the availability is 2% black sperm donors.
Absolutely.
Wow. And you were making the point that women of other races want a black sperm donor.
Absolutely.
All right. First of all, now how does that work? Meaning, if you get a black sperm donor, does that sperm only go to one person, or can it be split up?
Yeah. So when a donor makes a deposit, the sperm that they give can potentially be used for many vials of sperm, and one insemination would take one vial. So if they had 10 vials, that can go potentially for 10 different women, or for less women if they acquire more vials for themselves.
Now, what's the issue in terms of lack of donors? Is it, first of all, I don't know. Are people paid to be sperm donors? Is that part of the problem? Is the pay too damn low? Or is it just, or is there no outreach? Is there no campaign to target people?
Well, it's multifactorial. I think for us being Black people, we know that there's a stigma for Black males, and I think asking someone to be a donor may be a little contradictory to how we feel about families, or the stigma that we put on Black males is they don't want to take care of their family, but then on the other hand, you're asking them to be donors. Yes, donors are paid, and they're paid very little. On average, it's about $65 for a donation, compared to an egg donor who might get $5,000 to $10,000.
Whoa. $65? And you said an egg donor may get $5,000 to $10,000? Okay.
Yeah. Well, what goes into it is how much effort it takes to donate sperm. It's very minimal effort, whereas someone who's donating eggs has to do a month-long process, undergo a surgical procedure. So it's really compensating for the time spent to donate those eggs.
Oh no, I get that, but hell, if you got a 2%, if all you got is 2%, you might have to jack the pay up to get more. Imagine if you go from 65 to 250.
Absolutely, there is a supply and demand, and Black donors are definitely in demand. So a higher donation to them will probably be.
All right,
better.
hold up. So let me. Okay, this is my last question before I go to the panel. All right. So they get paid $65. Woman comes in and she wants a sperm donor. How much she got to pay for the sperm?
$1,200.
Hold up. See right there. See now we got a problem. She got to pay $1,200, and all he getting is $65.
So the sperm banks do have to do a lot of testing and background work for the screening process to make sure their safety FDA regulations are followed. Physical exams. So I do think there's a great disparity between how much it costs and how much someone is given for that donation. And that definitely can be made a little bit better, but I don't want to make it seem like sperm banks don't have to do a lot of work.
Oh, no, man, I get that. But again, you say it's supply and demand. And so, hell, this ain't no different than folk out there saying we can't hire workers. Well, you might have to increase your pay and your benefits to hire workers. And so you want more Black sperm donors, you got to put some more money on the table.
Unfortunately, that usually translates to making Black women pay more for donor sperm.
But the problem is, ain't that many Black men to choose from. So something don't have to happen.
Absolutely.
All right, let's see here. Michael, you first. What's your question for Tiffany?
I knew you were going to come to me first, Roland. I knew you were going to come to me first.
Well, you look like you were hauled up to ask a question.
No. Look, Dr. Tiffany, thanks for coming on and sharing this information with you. I did not know that the issue was this pertinent, that the disparity existed. I saw an article from October 20th from the Washington Post dealing with this topic. I was wondering, are African-American advertising agencies being utilized to craft messages specifically targeting African-American men, trying to recruit them to be sperm donors? Because there could be a lot of...
They're only paying $65.
because you know there could be a lot of in our community there may be a lot of apprehension behind that. Reading information from your website, it talked about apprehension when it comes to medical research involving African Americans, things like this. So can you shed any light on that, please?
Yeah, so I would say that using specifically African American marketing agencies is likely not happening. I don't think that people approach us in the way that we need to be approached. Sometimes you use an agency and they're using these urban videos with rap songs or something that they think is going to be something that we would want to hear, but that's not us. So yeah, using a marketing agency that is from us, by us, or us deciding to make our own sperm bank might be something that is needed, as this study or this article has identified.
All right, thank you.
All right, let's see here. Matt, what you got?
Well, you know, Dr. Tiffany, what really stuck out to me when I read about this was the fact that one of the screening, criteria is that you can't have a felony conviction. And the reason I ask that is, I can see theoretically DNA concerns about matches and that kind of thing, and maybe that's the genesis. But if it's purely genetic, what would be the reason behind not allowing somebody that has something completely unrelated to their genes, prevent them from being a sperm donor? And what is your thoughts on the aggregate effect of that in terms of the pool of people that might otherwise be available?
Well, I would say that, being an African-American woman, if I wanted to choose a donor, that might play a role also in what I want. Like, do I want my child to be in a gene pool of someone that was convicted from a felony? Probably not, So I don't know what exactly went into making that. It could have been to screen, so there are fewer African-American donors. But I can say on the flip side, all the things that are screened, women want to know. And just because there's a shortage doesn't mean they want to choose things or characteristics that they may not want to come out if there is a genetic link in a child.
All right.
I get that part. Can I ask a follow-up, Roland? I'm sorry.
All right, come on, man. Come on. I'm trying to get out of here. Come on.
I know. I get that part. But what I don't understand is presumably the donors actually sign away all rights and everything, right? And it's all blind. So beyond the situation where you have a genetic link with someone who's actually been convicted, I mean, wouldn't that be a way to significantly potentially increase those numbers? And, what are the chances genetically, if you have any way of saying that, of that even happening? I mean, it seems like that is keeping out a very large percentage of people who might otherwise be helpful to this cause.
Yeah, so the one thing I would say is anonymity is really gone to the wayside with genetic testing. Everyone, or a lot of people do 23andMe. Felony convictions sometimes do come with a DNA test. A child could find donor siblings and therefore find the donor. So I think we have to be very careful when you talk about things that are being like de-identified or blinded or an anonymous donor, because anonymity really isn't there.
Gotcha.
Tonight, what's up?
Dr. Tiffany, I know that Black women within the ages of 35 to 45 are more unlikely than any other racial group to get married, meaning that they have to rely heavily upon these cryobanks in order to provide support with being able to have children. So I would love for you to be able to speak about the prospects of the population pool for the Black community moving forward, given this fact.
Yeah, I see a lot of women who are moving towards being single mothers by choice because the statistics are staggering. We are single, unmarried. Age is a factor in fertility. So when you get into that age group of the 35 to 40, we will have to make tough choices or forego our fertility. Egg freezing also has now offered a really big advantage to us because we can delay things longer and maybe wait it out. But there is a big disproportion for men. I just had a beautiful woman in my office today. And I'm like, girl, what's going on? And she's like, where the man at? And I'm like, girl, I don't know. She's like, you know somebody? No. Okay. And I'm keeping my man just because I don't want to be out there with y'all.
That's real.
All right, then. All right. Well, Doc, we appreciate it. It is, I mean, again, this is one of those stories that people don't think about until you actually might be in that position and you need it. So we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that is it for us. Hey, listen up, Spokane, Washington. I will be seeing you tomorrow. I'm speaking at the NAACP Freedom Fund Dinner in Spokane, Washington, so looking forward to be there. Tomorrow is my nephew Chris's birthday, and that's my son, that's my brother Reginald's son. His birthday is on Sunday. My 54th birthday is on Monday, and I'm going to be broadcasting live from Houston on Monday because Ruth Simmons, the former president of Prairie View A&M University, she's having a dinner in honor of Chris Tucker. I have been invited to that dinner. I'll be attending that dinner on Monday, so I'll be broadcasting from H-Town on Monday. And so, folks, y'all have a fabulous, fabulous weekend. Thank you so very much for joining us. Janae, appreciate it. Michael, Matt, thank you so very much as well for joining us. Folks, don't forget, support us in what we do. Please download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Your dials make it possible for us to do what we do. We are going to be on the road in Georgia, focusing on that runoff there. And so send your check-in money orders to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Of course, Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com. Roland@RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. These folks gave during the show: Alicia Crocker, Damon Blissett, Fatima Morgan, Robert Brown, also Cy Holmes. Let's see here, Adrian Dobbins. Thank you so very much. Let's see, Monique. Let's see, Jesse Jackson. Brown, Deborah Harris, let's see here, Hope Rucker, Patricia McCullen, Kiana, Adrian Banks, Jacqueline, as well as Shanks. Thank you to all: Gregory Rogers, Corey Henderson, Nurse Linda White, Louis Straker Jr., Colin King, Shatina Barr, Erica Witherspoon, Intron Rollins, Cynthia Hall, Catherine Fuqua, Kayla Steen Butler, all gave during the Marvin Hunter as well, Jamal Hill, Nichelle Paul Lee, Rakita LeCount, Kimberly White, Patrick Jones, Lakeith Ellis, Terry Webb, LaWanda Cooper, Greg Johnson, Linda Whitener, Livin Lavita, Stephanie, William James, Jimmy Whitfield, Sam McFarland, Harold Hill. Thank you for all of you for supporting the show. Also, get my book, folks, White Fear: How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Get it at all bookstores. Download it on Audible as well. We certainly appreciate that, folks. Thank you so very much. Again, I appreciate it. I'll see y'all on Monday from H-Town, my hometown, on my birthday. We roll the name of the people who contribute to our show. Thank you for all of y'all's support for Roland Martin Unfiltered and the Black Star Network. Don't forget, go to Black Star Network, look at my interview with Laz Alonso and Michael Ealy and the others. Fantastic. Hope you enjoy it. I'll see y'all. Have a great weekend. Holla! Bye.